The world blinked, and Prince Louis vanished from sight. No more school appearances, royal balcony waves, or innocent smiles captured by the press. Overnight, the youngest beacon of the monarchy simply disappeared. Moments ago, the palace confirmed the reason, but their statement reveals only half the story. Behind it lies a trail of whispers, hidden documents, and one heart-wrenching decision that changed everything. For weeks, murmurs circulated among royal watchers. At first, it seemed like a simple oversight, a child staying home with a cold or kept away from the media circus. But as event after event passed with Prince Louis conspicuously absent, whispers grew into urgent questions. Why was the vibrant, beloved young prince no longer part of the public stage? Official engagements only deepened the mystery. Prince George stood tall beside his father. Princess Charlotte offered her poised, regal smile. Yet the space once filled by Louis's spark remained empty. There were no explanations, no photographs, not even a passing mention. Concern quickly turned to confusion, especially after 3 major royal appearances, each expected to include the full Wales family, passed without him. The family featured only 4 members at key royal events: the Commonwealth Day service, Trooping the Colour, and the Remembrance Sunday ceremony. Each time Prince Louis was absent, the palace remained silent, and speculation intensified. The British public, adept at reading between royal lines, sensed that something was off. For a monarchy so obsessed with image, the silence felt deafening. Was it an internal decision, a health concern, a quiet rebellion by the Wales family, or something far worse? The absence began to feel less like discretion and more like concealment. Then, just moments ago, the moment that stunned everyone arrived. The palace finally spoke. Its statement was brief, clinical, and carefully worded, citing a decision made in the best interest of the young prince's well-being and a period of protected time away from public life. But for those familiar with the royal machine, the language offered no comfort. It was a code. This was not simply about privacy, it was about something that had gone terribly wrong. Buried beneath the polished words was an unmistakable undertone, chilling and urgent. The decision to remove Louis from view was not temporary. It was the result of something larger, something hidden, something beyond control. History has shown that when the palace chooses silence, it is never without reason. This was not the first time a royal child had been kept from public life, and the shadows behind the crown are long. Once a child disappears into them, the path back is rarely straightforward. To understand the full weight of Prince Louis's disappearance, one must look back to the first signs of trouble within the royal corridors. Cameras captured it all, but no one paid attention. The last time Louis stood beside his family on that iconic balcony, his body language whispered what his lips never said, and in light of the palace's recent confirmation, those subtle signals take on a new, haunting significance. Those fleeting moments now take on a haunting new meaning. At first glance, it seemed like every other royal celebration. The family assembled in full view, waving to the public, offering smiles polished and practiced. Yet one small, unassuming figure stood differently. Prince Louis, usually animated and full of unpredictable charm, remained strangely still. His hands, often a source of viral mischief, were clenched, and his expression blank, almost rehearsed. Frame by frame, what had appeared as mere shyness now reveals something deeper, quietly pleading to be seen. A renowned child behavior analyst later examined the footage and drew stunning conclusions. Louis displayed signs of emotional withdrawal, averted eye contact, tense posture, and fidgeting that suggested internal anxiety rather than playful restlessness. She noted how he subtly leaned away from the crowd and how his shoulders stiffened with every cheer, actions that betrayed a child struggling to hold himself together. Even Catherine's carefully maintained smile couldn't fully conceal her concern. A fleeting glance toward her son betrayed worry rather than pride, a mother checking in out of fear something might go wrong. During the anthem, Prince William's subtle nod to a senior aide, unnoticed by the public, hinted at a prearranged cue, perhaps signaling the end of Louis's appearances after that day. Photographers sworn to royal protocol later admitted they were given strict instructions. No close-ups, no solo shots, no lingering lenses. Hours before the event, some even received embargoed orders that baffled them at the time but now fit perfectly into the puzzle. That final balcony appearance was not just a tradition, it was a silent farewell, orchestrated through glances, stillness, and quiet retreat. The palace knew what was coming, the family knew, yet the public cheered, oblivious, unaware that this moment marked the beginning of a disappearance. Inside the palace, however, a growing storm quietly spiraled out of control, with Catherine doing everything possible to shield her son from protocol, pressure, and the weight of the crown itself. Catherine, once the calm center of the royal family, became its most desperate protector. Behind the palace's pristine walls, she begged for one thing: let her son go. Within those gates, where tradition governs even the softest whisper, a different story unfolded: a mother's silent battle against a machine too powerful and polished to allow deviation. It began quietly, with handwritten letters, private and raw, finding their way to King Charles and select senior aides. In them, Catherine pleaded not for pity, but for space, compassion, and a pause from the relentless performance that was slowly unraveling her child. She documented what no press photo could show: emotional shifts at home, sudden tears without cause, Louis retreating into silence, his once carefree laughter replaced by anxious murmurs and quiet questions. She described how he flinched at camera shutters, resisted royal tutors, and hid during visits from palace aides, not tantrums, but cries for help. Yet even as she witnessed her son's inner collapse, Catherine had to navigate the suffocating duality of her role: mother and future queen consort. Every move carried political weight, every request faced scrutiny. As her desperation grew, so did resistance. Palace advisors warned that withdrawing Louis would spark rumors, headlines, and panic. They urged silence and control, insisting the monarchy's image come first. But Catherine wasn't thinking of the crown, she was thinking of her child, and the internal conflict became unbearable, with nights reportedly spent refusing engagements unless the matter was addressed. Catherine's determination intensified as the issue of Louis's well-being remained unresolved. Senior staff noticed a marked shift in her demeanor, once poised and diplomatic, now tense and unyielding. One aide recalled her walking out of a planning session after a remark about managing Louis was made. The following day, she sent another letter. This time more than a request, it was an ultimatum. Everything came to a head when Louis, expected to appear at a ceremonial unveiling with his siblings, simply refused to leave his room. No coaxing worked. No promises soothed him. It was the moment Catherine had feared, and when the palace insisted on a last-minute appearance, she drew the line, staying away herself. For the first time since joining the royal family, she defied the firm's calendar, sending shockwaves through the palace corridors. The institution remained unmoved. Protocol demanded stability, and emotional fractures had no place in the equation. But Catherine's public silence masked a storm raging in private, and while royal advisors dismissed her voice, someone far closer to the throne was beginning to listen, and when provoked, he was far more formidable. Even Prince William began questioning whether his family's future was being sacrificed for a centuries-old legacy. Though born to rule, he saw what the crown was doing to his son and reached a breaking point. Behind closed doors at Clarence House, an explosive meeting unfolded, described by insiders as the most intense family confrontation since the Diana years. King Charles sat at the head of the room, flanked by Queen Camilla, as William entered late, silent and cold, holding a folder containing confronting reports, letters, emotional accounts from Catherine, and, most damningly, a signed warning from Louis's physician. What began as a discussion quickly turned volatile. William first tried to remain composed, laying out concerns about his son's emotional decline, Catherine's pleas, and the palace's refusal to adapt. But when Camilla allegedly interrupted, suggesting Louis might simply be experiencing a sensitive phase, William snapped. The future king, raised never to falter, stood, slammed the folder shut, and declared, "He's not your puppet." The room fell silent. Charles reportedly attempted to calm him, insisting they were acting in Louis's best interests, but William's voice shaking with fury. William accused the palace machine, particularly Camilla's camp, of pushing Louis into the spotlight to win public favor. He referenced an internal memo he had intercepted, a proposal drafted by one of Camilla's aides suggesting a family-friendly appearance featuring Louis to boost intergenerational support. It was not just manipulative, it was dangerous. The confrontation escalated. A senior royal aide attempted to steer the discussion back to protocol, warning that any deviation from planned appearances would create a media vacuum. William reportedly replied, "Then let them speculate. I'd rather they chase shadows than break my son." Even Charles, who had never seen his son so resolute and willing to defy everything he had been raised for, was stunned. Then came the unthinkable. William issued a threat, not in anger but in cold resolve. If the palace did not back down and Louis was not immediately removed from all future public engagements, he and Catherine would consider stepping back from royal duties indefinitely. He did not raise his voice or plead. He simply laid down a boundary no heir had ever dared draw. It was more than rebellion, it was a fracture. The firm had always relied on William's sense of duty and unflinching loyalty, but in that moment, he was no longer just the heir. He was a father, and no crown was worth the destruction of his child. As the palace scrambled to cover the cracks, a new layer of fear emerged, unrelated to public scrutiny and tied instead to something far darker. A single document, hidden in a sealed file at a private London clinic, was never meant to leave the room, but it did, revealing truths that would change everything. Prince Louis' situation sent shockwaves through the royal family, forcing a decision no parent should ever face. The confidential file arrived in silence, no fanfare, no alarms, just a single envelope passed discreetly from physician to royal medical liaison. Inside were the results of an evaluation Catherine had quietly authorized weeks earlier. Desperate to understand what was truly happening with her son, Louis's behavioral shifts had not only alarmed his parents but were beginning to affect his daily life. Emotional outbursts, silent withdrawals, and moments where he seemed unreachable even to those closest to him. Though Catherine had feared the findings, she was unprepared for the report's conclusion. Specialists identified signs consistent with a rare neurological sensitivity, manageable, yet significantly worsened by high-pressure environments, especially those involving crowds, cameras, and royal ceremonies. It was not a condition to be ignored. Continued public exposure, the doctors warned, could result in lasting psychological harm. The prescribed solution was clear and immediate: extended removal from all public and press engagements. But the palace's response took a darker turn. Instead of acting swiftly, the report was quietly handed to the internal communications and optics team, whose priority was the crown's image, not the child's welfare. They stalled, delaying action while meetings were held, and the clock ticked dangerously on. Meetings were scheduled, public relations risks assessed, and strategy memos drafted, but in that delay, Louis's condition worsened. He became increasingly withdrawn, more reactive, and harder to comfort. While the palace appeared to prioritize perception over protection, Catherine understood this all too clearly. What followed was one of the most private and devastating moments in modern royal history. Alone in her Kensington quarters, she received a follow-up copy of the report and read it repeatedly, each time more shaken. According to insiders, she collapsed into tears, unable to comprehend how those around her could rationalize exposing her son to harm for the sake of appearances. That night, she canceled all engagements for the following week, shut her door, and for the first time since her wedding, went completely off the grid. Behind the scenes, panic spread. The physician, alarmed by the inaction, reportedly warned the palace that further delays would breach ethical boundaries. Pressure mounted. William, still reeling from the confrontation with his father and Camilla, now had undeniable medical proof in hand, truth that could not be spun or ignored. Just as the crown braced for the storm, another rupture emerged: a leak. Someone inside the palace had begun revealing details of Louis's condition to the tabloids. What was supposed to remain private was now public, sparking speculation and scandal. The first leak was subtle, a single line in a mid-tier gossip column suggesting that Prince Louis faced challenges requiring temporary withdrawal from public duties. Many brushed it off, but within a week, more precise and disturbingly accurate details began to appear, referencing private consultations, behavioral therapy, and even hinting at sensitive medical concerns. As headlines grew louder, it became clear that someone with inside access was feeding the press. A review of the timeline revealed a troubling pattern. Every leak closely followed confidential internal meetings attended by only a small circle of senior royals and advisors. Yet within hours, whispers from those rooms appeared in tabloids known for royal scoops. Suspicion quickly mounted, and trust began to fracture within Kensington Palace. Rumors suggested that Camilla's communications team, known for aggressive press strategy, had accessed documents meant only for William and Catherine's inner circle. Whispers claimed that a senior staffer loyal to Camilla had seen private notes tied to Louis's health. If true, this was not mere mismanagement but sabotage disguised as spin. The breaking point came when Catherine, no longer able to remain silent, requested a private meeting with Camilla. According to a senior household aide, the atmosphere was icy. Catherine did not raise her voice or make direct accusations, but her words were cutting. "You've gone too far this time." It was not a confrontation between two royal women, it was a mother drawing a line, and everyone in the room knew its significance. Days later, the Queen's press secretary abruptly resigned, with no explanation or farewell statement. Observers noted the timing was hardly coincidental. Behind the scenes, Charles reportedly ordered an internal investigation, though, like so many royal inquiries, the results were never made public. The palace cited privacy. Others saw damage control. For William, this was the final straw. Already frustrated by systemic failures to protect his son, he acted swiftly. Several aides believed to be linked to the leaks were permanently removed from Kensington operations. Access was restricted, and for the first time, William and Catherine began holding key meetings off-site, away from palace walls they no longer trusted. This was more than a leak, it was a betrayal. Piercing the heart of a family already under immense pressure, as the monarchy struggled to contain the damage, the cracks were becoming visible to the world. But the final blow came not from within, but from a whisper outside the palace gates. She was the one constant in Louis's life, his confidant, his comfort, and now his unexpected advocate. The private journal of Louis's former nanny, never meant to be discovered, revealed a side of royal life the public had never imagined and truths too painful to ignore. The discovery was accidental. A retired palace housekeeper, sorting through old luggage in a seldom-used storage room at Sandringham, found a small leather-bound journal tucked between folded children's clothes and a faded toy. The handwriting was delicate but firm, the pages raw, honest, and explosive. The journal belonged to Louis's former full-time nanny, handpicked by Catherine and trusted beyond traditional staff protocol. In it, she poured her heart out not for an audience, but as reflections, confessions, and cries for help she believed no one would hear. One early entry described Louis's vivid, frightening dreams. He had told her he feared people watching him from the walls and that wearing the same clothes as his siblings made him feel like a statue. She wrote of how he clung to her in the evenings, asking if he could stay with her instead of returning to royal routines, offering an intimate and heartbreaking glimpse into the young prince's private world. It wasn't defiance that had marked Louis's final balcony appearance, it was fear, pure and simple. The nanny's journal traced the aftermath in heartbreaking detail. Louis began refusing eye contact, hiding under his bed when staff arrived, and whispering to himself when alone. Catherine confided in the nanny during particularly painful nights. They cried together, not as employer and staff, but as two women watching a child being worn down by duty. Weeks later, the journal described late-night visits from an unnamed senior royal, cold, authoritative, and always unannounced. Louis would often weep after these visits, saying he didn't want to be their little soldier. The final pages, written just before the nanny's departure, grew more erratic and desperate. One hurried final line read simply, "He's safer in silence," 6 words that now resonate louder than any official statement ever could. Once the nanny's truth emerged, the palace had no choice but to confront the situation, culminating in a shocking confirmation that shattered royal tradition. There was no fanfare, no emotion, just a carefully worded paragraph sent to global newsrooms, presented as a clarification on ongoing speculation. Brief and neutral, it referenced a temporary adjustment to Prince Louis's public engagements to support his emotional wellness and development. No physicians were named, no cause explained, just vague reassurance designed to calm without confessing. Yet in the world of royal communication, that kind of caution speaks volumes. The phrase emotional wellness stood out like a signal, a subtle acknowledgement of the storm that had quietly, but powerfully, reshaped the youngest member of the royal family. The phrase emotional wellness stood out like a flare in a fog. It wasn't a diagnosis or an acknowledgement, it was a placeholder. A calculated phrase used to say something without truly saying anything. Insiders immediately recognized the tactic. When the palace wants control, it turns to ambiguity. But this time, the public wasn't buying it, because the silence surrounding the story had already created too much noise. Comparisons were immediate. When Archie was absent from royal proceedings, the palace stayed silent for weeks before citing privacy. When Prince George missed an event, it was attributed to school. Louis's case was different. The statement didn't place him with tutors or on holiday. It placed him in a gray zone of undefined vulnerability, a red flag masked as compassion. Reactions were swift and divided. Some praised the Wales family for prioritizing their son's well-being, even against tradition. Others demanded transparency and questioned what the monarchy was hiding. Conspiracy theories exploded across social media, speculating everything from secret illness to internal exile. Through it all, William and Catherine remained silent, their silence louder than any press release, becoming the center of a new storm. Royal commentators noted that even during past scandals, divorces, health scares, and public attacks, the couple had always found a way to address the public. Now, nothing, no word, photo, or gesture. The most visible royal family in modern history had chosen invisibility, inviting the world to draw its own conclusions. As for Louis, his future remains unwritten. The palace statement offered no timeline for his return, no mention of duties, no hint of succession planning, just a boy once cherished as the monarchy's light-hearted darling, now quietly removed from the stage, a shadow where a smile used to be. Yet while the official word had been spoken, A final twist suggested Louis's disappearance was not just about protection, but prophecy. Buried in the forgotten archives of a late queen's confidant lay a strange prophecy, once dismissed as poetic nonsense, now terrifyingly real. The youngest shall bear the burden, and his silence shall shake the crown. Was Prince Louis's removal written in fate long before his birth? Queen Elizabeth reportedly maintained a private relationship with a discreet spiritual advisor whose influence, never officially acknowledged, quietly threaded through the royal family, hinting that the boy's fate may have been foretold long before anyone imagined. Some of the Queen's most personal decisions were influenced by this spiritual advisor. Among the dusty journals hidden deep in Windsor's sealed estate collection sat a passage that has recently resurfaced. Once dismissed as harmless mysticism, its contents are now being revisited with haunting urgency. Dated just weeks after Prince Harry's birth, the passage contained cryptic warnings. The heir shall wrestle with shadow. The spare shall flee from light. But the youngest unseen shall bear the burden none shall name. At the time, royal archivists believed it symbolic, perhaps reflecting Charles's future lineage or family legacy. But in the wake of Louis's disappearance, the parallels are striking. Queen Elizabeth's fascination with this advisor was long-standing. Insiders say she frequently invited the confidant to Balmoral for private readings. Whispers, never officially verified, suggest the same seer once predicted Princess Diana's fall from royal favor and the eventual breakdown of Charles's marriage. A second diary entry, dated during Catherine's first pregnancy, reportedly referenced a third child of clarity and chaos who would disappear to protect what others feared to name. Unpublished excerpts from a conversation between Elizabeth and Catherine, documented by a retired lady-in-waiting, describe the Queen warning her granddaughter-in-law of a great silence to come. It will not be your first child who carries the name, nor the second. It will be the third who feels the weight none of us ever chose. At the time, Catherine was reportedly confused, even amused. Today, those words carry a chilling resonance. Why was this prophecy never revealed to the public? Some say it was buried intentionally, too dangerous or bizarre to share. Others believe it was simply forgotten. Yet if the pattern fits, Louis's disappearance was not merely a reaction to crisis, it may have been the fulfillment of a long-foretold fate, something no one could prevent. Was this destiny unfolding naturally, or was it manipulated by those who believed in the prophecy? Was Louis protected, or was he silenced? Did the monarchy bend to mysticism, or use the myth as a shield for something darker? The mystery deepens, leaving one question echoing through the halls of history. What price does the crown demand when it falls upon the innocent?